I'm very excited to be talking with author Lisa Printz Roday. Today, we are launching her book officially today, Fingerprintz, One Woman's Journey Through Loss, Love, and Very Little Babies. Yay! Oh, so this is an amazing book about your lived experience. And you also bring a lot of your professional experience to this as well. You had up to almost 15 years as a matrimonial lawyer in New York City, and then formed the NICU Family Support Program at March of Dimes. Can you just talk with me a little bit about what inspired you to put your experiences in a book and to write this book?
Well, so first, I did not create the NICU Family Support
Oh,
Program. I
okay.
created it in Virginia,
Oh, okay, cool.
at this hospital here
Mm-hmm.
locally. It
Nice.
existed before I became the first specialist in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an amazing, and still is an amazing program that allows families to have an advocate who really is
Mm-hmm.
the bridge between the health professionals and the parents. Their parents have a very interesting role in the NICU, right? You know, they're not the patient. they're
Mm-hmm.
and they're sort of deposited into this completely foreign environment as a result of many reasons why kids wind up in the neonatal intensive care unit.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly for me, it was an opportunity to create something that was lacking during my NICU experience,
Mm-hmm.
and gave me the opportunity to give back in an extremely tangible way, because I knew what these families needed to know. I
Mm-hmm.
understood, because I had been on that side of the bed,
Right.
to really be able to empathize with them and understand, even if your situation was completely different. I mean, there are babies who are there because they're early. There are babies who are there because they have some illness, or the mom was diabetic and the baby is at risk. So there's thousands of reasons why babies wind up in the NICU. And so you don't need to have the same universal experience of the why you're there, but
Mm.
that you're there. That commonality and the terror of that is
Mm.
something that's very relatable if you went through it.
Mm.
So it was extremely gratifying for me. It was probably
Mm.
one of the highlights of my professional lives to be able to give back in
Mm.
that way for 5 years to families.
Mm.
Really very rewarding.
And so we go into in depth in the book with your experiences of your son's births. Could you share a little bit, just a little snippet about what landed you in the NICU? What were you there for?
So I was there twice. You know, the two-time offender is not a frequent a frequent
Oh man.
happening in the NICU. Um, Usually if you're a two-time offender, it's because you have multiples, right? You have twins or
Right.
triplets, right? Like that's why you're there. But no,
Right.
we got to do it two times in a row. Um, and the first time I landed there, we thought it was because I had a piece of unpasteurized cheese that for most people would, for healthy people, healthy women and healthy men,
All right.
it causes no reaction. But
Right.
for pregnant women, it causes a bug called listeriosis, and listeria can cause premature labor. So I had no idea that I had it. I was feeling, cold, like sort of stomach flu-y kind of symptoms for
Mm-hmm.
a couple of days, but I was in the middle of a crazy time at work, which of course is an oxymoron because all of my time at work was crazy. But there wasn't a pause button to say, oh well, maybe I should go check this out. I mean, I just thought it was a cold, and it
Mm-hmm.
was summer, and I just didn't think about it. And the next thing I knew, I went into labor in the middle of the night, and the doctor said, you better get yourself in here. So that was it.
And how many weeks was it? It was very early.
Yes. So my first son was 27 weeks gestation. So he was 13 weeks
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
And our second son was only 12 weeks early.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. What experience what would you give people for advice that are facing this situation, that are have preterm babies or find themselves in the NICU for other reasons?
I think the advice is easy to give and hard to put into practice. I think you just have to take every single day as it comes to you. It's impossible to plan anything when you have a baby in the NICU. Conditions change so quickly. So if you just wake up every day and say, I'm going to deal with what I have to face today. It's just, that is the manageable bite, because you can get through those double doors and it's completely different than what you left the night before. And sometimes in a good way, and sometimes in a very bad way. So the best thing to do from my perspective was to manage my own expectations that the next day could be very different. So I would just suggest that if you can, when you walk out every night or in the middle of the night, or sometimes you stay there the whole night, just take a deep breath and just say, okay, I'll deal with the next thing tomorrow.
That's great advice. And one thing I wanted to talk with you about, how we start the book, right? The book starts out you're thrown right in to you trying to save your father's life. And you were 21, I think.
21.
And he was young. He was almost my age, but this is like 47. He was a young guy. Yeah. And so that I mean, what was that like for you? Like, how did that frame the rest of your life after that situation?
Honestly, nothing was ever the same.
Yeah.
Nothing. And it completely transformed everything in my life. And I think what I got from writing this book is how much good actually came. And, you can't look backwards with a crystal ball and say, well, if he would have lived, I would have done X. I can only tell you what actually happened. And he didn't live. And as a result, I did Y. So,
right.
right. So those are the things that come out. And for me, it was a real mix of incredible tragedy. I mean, our whole family was wrecked by it. I have a visceral memory of, they put you in this holding room the day of the funeral, and it's supposed to be like you're with the rabbi, and he puts the ribbon on your sweater, and he cuts the ribbon, and you say the memorial prayer, and like you're together, like the whole family is together, and then you kind of file out into the chapel where the service is being held. This is before the graveside. And I remember walking out of this little room in the back into this giant room. There was not an empty seat. There were people standing in the aisles. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I think it was obviously a huge testament to who he was, but it was also just the fallibility, right? Oh my God, we're so mortal. Like he was the first person that I ever remember dying in their 40s. And
Mhm.
so people just came from everywhere. And it was that, to me, that second when we walked in and I was like, oh my God, who are all these people?
Right.
And it felt comforting and overwhelming. And it was like a giant hug. So it was like all those things.
Mhm.
But I do think in that second, I realized, well, I'm not the only one that this feels tragic to. Like, look at all
Right.
these people
Right.
who it also feels tragic to.
Right. And it's so clear that his life made such an impact on so many people. And you've done a wonderful job of throughout the book of weaving in the different things you learned from him, all these very special memories of him and how that influenced you and the way that you grew up and handled, grew up, you're still growing up at 21, right?
Exactly.
And the way that it helped you navigate all the different things that you face. So I also want to mention who I really see this book really resonating with is people that, well, you tell a great story about what it's like as a woman to juggle work, juggle family, juggle the day-to-day, moment-to-moment decisions that it takes to bring children into the world. And some of these choices are not easy and they're very hard. Um, and you're very open in the book with talking about that. And I think that will, and some things people don't always feel comfortable talking about. So I want to acknowledge you for being open with that. And I think it will help build the conversation. Um,
As you know, having read the book, I call it the big lie. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, the notion that you could have it all.
Mhm.
We just bought that hook, line, and sinker. You can have it all. Yeah, all.
Yeah.
But you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And
Yeah.
I think when I talk to young women, they still think they can have it all. Like, that myth has
Mhm.
perpetuated despite those of us who have come before to try and say you're setting yourself up to
Mm.
be in crazy land because you can't
Right.
have it all at the same time. And there's so much going on in the background that you don't see, all the invisible plates that we're spinning and we're trying to keep aloft.
Mhm.
And in the moment, you kind of think you have it all together, but one plate has to drop and the whole thing just comes crashing down. So I think for me, if there are universal messages, the message to women is that yes, you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time.
Oh yeah, I think that's good. I just thinking back to when my kids were in elementary school and preschool, and I was working at the same time and doing all these things, and then feeling bad that I wasn't like saving the world, doing volunteer work and all of this. It's like, how on earth was I handling what I was doing back then? I don't even know how I was doing those multiple things. So I know that this is a very relatable thing, and I think that message will really, help people as they're navigating through it. So the ebook is free today. It will be free today through Sunday. And it's available on Amazon. People can find it there. I'll add a link so that people can find it easily. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners today?
I guess what I would say is that life is hard. There are things that people face and carry that
Mm-hmm.
are unseen,
Mm-hmm.
and we shouldn't assume
Mm-hmm.
anything about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are open to either sharing your story or allowing somebody to share their story with you,
Mhm.
you will often find that there is a common ground.
Mm.
Oh, I had a miscarriage, or oh yeah,
Mhm.
I remember when that happened to me. I mean, there it is such a divisive world now.
Mhm.
When we really connect on a human level, and that's part
Mhm.
of why I felt like sharing it all. I mean,
Mm.
people read the book and say, "Did your mother read this book?
I
What did she
love
think of
that.
it? Like, what did she think?" And
Did your mother read
and my mother
this?
did indeed read every version of this book. And God bless her, she's 92 years old, and she had it, printed out and 3-ring bound and put into a binder. And
Yes.
she's read it multiple times. And, we'll often say, "I can't believe I didn't know that, dot, dot, dot. I can't believe you never told me, dot, dot, dot." So I think part of why I wanted to kind of leave it all out there is to share that message that people who seem to have it all together, they may not have it all together, or they may have had to go through things that you
Mm.
can't even imagine that they went through. And if you just want to be open to understanding
Mm.
what others have gone through, we can
Mhm.
find a lot of things to talk about.
Mm. It's so true. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And if people want to connect with you, is the website the best way to reach you?
Yes,
Okay, great.
www.lisaprintzroday.com. And there is a submit form in there, and
Mhm.
I will get right back when I feasibly can. But
Mhm.
yes, that's the best way to get to me. I also have a LinkedIn page, and people can find me there. And I've had a presence on the web for a very long time due to my professional life. So I'm
Mhm.
I'm easy to find.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Really
Have
appreciate the opportunity.
have a great rest of your day.
You too.